using the GTD methodology, because I mean, we observe this every day, and I'm just as guilty of it as the next guy. Where do we start unpacking these things? So the first one that you mentioned was capture. I'm guessing that's the starting point of this whole process and how we take control. So I'll turn it over to you. Maybe walk us through these in more detail.
Well, let's suppose I was sitting next to you, Michael, right now, and I was coaching you and walking you into this methodology, right? And because I do that.
Sure.
We do that. I mean, that's how this all got developed and researched. First thing we do is, gee, Michael, what's on your mind right now? Or by the way, what around you in your little studio there does not belong there permanently, or on your desk or work area? And we just find the triggers called what has your attention. That's where we need to start, is what are the things pulling on you? So when you say people sit down and go, oh, I got all this stuff to do. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's list them out.
Interesting.
Write them down, right? So you have the tools right in front of you right there, the best tools for capturing, which is pen and paper, right? So I would just have you start, hey, Michael, by the way, what's on your mind? By the way, you want to share anything?
Sure. Hey, let's do a live one here. So what's on my mind is I have a webinar that needs to be set up for Friday that I haven't done yet.
Right. So just write that down.
Okay.
So
Webinar
Friday. Cool.
Something else. And this is a first for DPB viewers, by the way. We're getting a live. Well, the fact that I have 2 other podcasts back to back right after this, and I need to be able to get things off the memory card and clear up space and all those things.
Yeah, the right podcast coming. All right. What else on your mind? Anything else? Any other projects or anything else that's sort of top of mind in terms of your life? And when today is done, or when you finish, with all of this.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, we've got corporate partners in town, and we're having meetings about new product development.
Cool. Just write that down. New product dev.
And
so I just gave you a tiny little taste.
Sure, yeah.
Guess how long that takes for the typical mid to senior level professional that we coach, just to capture all that stuff, not to do anything with it, not to make any decisions or prioritize or organize, but just identify what's on your mind. 1 to 6 hours. You just spent 1 minute.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot more to come.
Sure.
See, you have the feeling there's a lot more sitting under those rocks inside your head.
Yeah.
And so that would be the first step, is to get all that out. Because there's a part of you can fool me, but you can't fool yourself, that some part of you says, yeah, but this is not everything. There's still other stuff that's still pulling on me. Great, get it all. So that's the first step, is the capture process.
Well, and I think with your experience, I don't think I could fool you. I think you could see right through it.
Oh, no, come on. You're just welcome to the human race, as most people have this huge habit of thinking that holding stuff in your head is a way to manage it.
Okay, so now we have all of these things out, and you could already sense I was getting ready to go there. I'm thinking family. I'm thinking all these sorts of things.
Yeah, you should.
Now that I have them all out on paper, where do I go?
Well, then you go one at a time. Basically, it's the way you empty your in basket. So the first thing you did was put stuff into your in basket, much like email that's piling up or social media is piling up for you right now.
Sure.
Those are meeting notes you take in the meetings you're going to have, et cetera. Those are all things you need to say, okay, that's raw input, but I can't leave it there. If you leave it there, you'll still reinforce the stress you're in, because you keep looking at that and going, oh, God, there's decisions I still need to make about all those things I haven't done yet.
Right.
And so there's some thinking and decision making. That's step 2, which is clarify now exactly what those things mean that you just wrote down. Let's take the last one, because that'll be the more complex one to begin with that you wrote down. So that's something about, you've got people in town, you're having meetings about something, product development.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So there are 2 questions. Well, the first thing you need to do in terms of clarification is this something you're committed to move on? Sounds like it is.
Yeah.
Right? Top of mind stuff.
Sure.
Because a lot of times we get input that, hey, there's nothing I need to do about that. I just need to park it as a reference or trash it or whatever. But that's a real actionable thing. If it's actionable, there are 2 key questions to ask and answer that you may not have asked and answered yet. First question is, Michael, what's the very next thing you need to do about that thing? If you had nothing else to do but move the needle on what you just wrote down about that, where would you go right now? What would you do? What's the physical, visible next action you would need to take?
I would, see, now it gets a little bit deeper. I have no idea.
and who would, or how would you find out what to do?
I would probably have another meeting with the people I brought into town.
And how would you do that?
I would leave my studio here and I would walk down the hall and I would sit down with them and say, okay, where are we at?
Great. So that's an action you need to take, and you need to do it in your office.
Yes.
Right. So great. So you got a next action called set meeting with X people, XYZ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that have to happen today?
Yes.
Okay, then that would go on your calendar if that were me.
Yeah.
So I'm skipping to step 3, which is organize. So once you made the decision about what you need to do, the next step is, okay, now, will that one action complete whatever this is about?
Yes.
No, whatever this is, the whole thing is about.
Oh, no. No, it
Correct.
definitely won't.
Therefore, you have a project, right? Therefore, you have some outcome you've committed to complete about this. So, Michael, give it this situation that you wrote down, you get to mark all that off as complete or done when what's true.
The product is launched.
Are you sure you're going to launch the project, or is this still in research mode?
No, the money says we're definitely going to launch this project.
Great. And can that happen within a year?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Then you have a project called launch product, right? Mm-hmm. So now you've got an outcome and you have an action step. Now you're committed to launch the product. The way you're going to start to move the needle is walk down the hall and talk to people and set a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Got it? Now, if you park those two reminders, now, for instance, if you parked on your calendar, said, hey, today I got to go set that meeting. And if that's on your calendar and some part of you trust, you're going to look at that when you get off the phone with me.
Right.
Right? Now you have a trusted action in a trusted place. But how about that? Do you have that launch product on a list that you look at consistently enough to know where you are against that outcome? If you don't yet, then you do not have that in a trusted place. So if you want to get that whole thing off your mind, what you need to do is make those two decisions. What's the next step? If that one step will not complete this, what's the outcome I'm committed to? And then park the reminders of those two things in places you trust you'll see at the right time and place.
So that could be like a calendar, task management software, those sorts
any of
things.
that. Write it on your butt. Hire 43 people to follow you around and remind you at the right time. Any of that works, as long as that works for you.
I don't have enough money to pay 43 people to look at my butt all day.
Yeah, right. Got it. So, but you don't have to finish that project to get it off your mind. What you do have to do is be appropriately engaged with it. And I just gave you the secret algorithm about how do you get appropriately engaged with that commitment you've made with yourself without having to finish it. Then your mind gets to let it go. But again, your mind can't let it go if it doesn't trust you're going to look at your calendar or be reminded you need to go set the meeting, or it doesn't trust that at least once a week you're going to look at that project and say, what the hell do I need to do next? And that reminds me I need to, that you've got this outcome that you're going to also need to be reminded about. So that's the thinking process that I uncovered over all these years that has to be applied to the stuff. See, most people have to-do lists, but most to-do lists are incomplete lists of still unclear stuff that maintain as much stress as they try to relieve, simply because they didn't go through the process you just went through. And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Did you notice that those things did not happen automatically? You weren't born doing those. Yeah. I had to coach you through that. Those are actually muscles, cognitive muscles you have to train to think, to recognize you need to apply that thought process to everything you just wrote down.
Is this a daily thing? Like, do you wake up in the morning and you sit down with your piece of paper and say, okay, here's what today looks like? Or, for me, where 10 o'clock at night rolls around and I start thinking about my next day and start prioritizing and those sorts of things. Is that what has to happen for somebody to kind of get into the habit, or is this per project, per?
You're doing a good behavior, which I do too, which is look at my hard landscape. The night before, I look at the landscape for the next day, so I know how long I can sleep. I just like to sleep as long as I can. So I just need to know what'll die if I don't do it tomorrow. Right. So I don't make daily to-do lists. They suck. They don't work because your life changes too fast for those. But I do need to know what commitments I've made that I do need to keep, relative to my time. So I do that too. However, when you say you sit down and think about all that stuff, you just created content you wouldn't think about unless you went through that thought process.